Bernie Gittes, who's the DOA deputy, and Audrey Tabasnia, who's with Guam Housing Corporation, and they're partnering up for this emergency rental assistance.
Yeah, era
Era.
program.
Era.
Yeah,
It's a new era.
it is a new era. Yes, I like that. So I guess we'll just start with how many applicants have you received so far? And I know we're early in, but how many have been approved? How many have been pre-approved? How many have been rejected? All that stuff. Okay, Bernie. Good morning. Go ahead.
Okay, the fun stuff. So good morning. So as of Friday, our last day to collect the pre-tenant applications, which was the first cycle that ended on Friday last week. We received 2,600 applications. Out of 26, we, as of yesterday afternoon, close of business, we were able to review 910 applications. Out of that, eligible was 450. We've got ineligible at 302. And then we have about 158, which were incomplete. Incomplete, again, as we stated in the past, we're just seeking more information. They may, have included a family member in there, but then they didn't provide us some income in reference to that person. And they identified that person was employed, but there was no income. So about 158 is what we're going to need to go back to these individuals, these applicants, and then just make some follow-up calls to them. Out of all of the 450 that were eligible, we were able to notify and provide emails, phone calls to about 311 individuals, letting them know that they are eligible and that we were able to provide them with the tenant packets. And again, the tenant packet entails release forms to the utility agencies if they are receiving PUA. Again, there's also release forms for PUA for Department of Labor so that we, Department Administration, can go ahead and request those information on their behalf. And then also information in reference to their landlords or landlords for the landlord verifications and some other subsequent documents that are needed for the applications. So that's pretty much the gist is where we're at now.
I'm sorry, how many were rejected?
As of now, what was rejected was 302 that were deemed ineligible. We are using, there's two methods of how we were going about, which was we're putting things into the system, a newly system that we created, an in-house system that we created, and then there are also manual reviews. But we certainly are going to take a look again back with the ineligibles if it's in reference to the income levels, because again, there's some different criteria that took in effect the past couple of weeks. So we are not sending the ineligible letters just yet. We are going to go ahead and take a look at it one more time to just verify and make sure that those are truly individuals that will not qualify. Keep in mind, we did do a query and we did take a look at what were those questions. What were the reasoning as to why certain people were disqualified. Although it's maybe preliminary, the majority of them was really based on them not meeting COVID, that they were not affected by COVID. Because keep in mind, there are 3 criteria again that would allow for eligibility. So we're looking at the majority of them they were not they were not affected by COVID or establishing any kind of housing instability. Certainly we know that most individuals assume that it's based on income level, but from what we're looking at the preliminary numbers, it is based on that they weren't affected by COVID.
Right. So after you do this second, review of these rejected applications, is there any recourse if that tenant feels like, no, I am
An
eligible?
appeal process?
Yeah.
Sabrina, I can go ahead and respond to that. So as part of the being a grantee, we did establish policies where for tenants who were deemed ineligible, we do have an appeal process. And once the tenant has officially received their letter indicating they're disqualified, and in that letter, it will show which criteria they did not meet. And then it will also inform the tenant that they do have 20 working days to submit an appeal. As you said earlier, if they feel that, well, you know what, it was COVID impacted, and they would just have to submit in writing that they would like to appeal the determination of ineligibility. And then from there, the program staff will review their appeal, and then we will make that contact with the tenant and see how we can, review again their application and proceed from there. And if they are able to provide documentation and where it means the status is changed, then that can also be done. But they do have that 20 working days to appeal their ineligibility. And as what Bernie also mentioned, that yes, there was 302 that was identified to be disqualified. We are going to do that second review before these tenants are officially notified. And part of that reason is because recently, the IRS had announced that individuals who've been receiving PUA, that with their 1040 and they file their taxes, that they can come in or can submit, an amendment or a modification to their taxes, which it will reduce up to the amount up to $10,200. Now, taking a look at all those who were disqualified because of income, the staff, ERA staff, is going to review, especially have a second review for those categories. And if anyone was receiving PUA, then that's, it is possible that they could then qualify because of that reduction up to 10,000. So that's part of the reason why we are not so quick in submitting, giving these individuals, these tenants who are disqualified. We really want to make sure that if they are disqualified and they did not meet that criteria, that is in fact true and correct.
Do you guys have a breakdown in terms of like how many of these checks are going to go for rental arrears and then utility arrears?
Right. Yeah. I mean, certainly that's a question that's been asked numerous times. We are, because we have manually reviewed a lot of the documentation at the onset, it's kind of preliminary. I mean, to kind of give those numbers out right now. Our focus is to put in all of the ones that were reviewed manually into the system. And again, the system has the capabilities to generate those reports. We'll query it based on the arrears, rental arrears, utilities, and also utility arrears. We have some preliminary numbers, but we don't want to release that simply because those are numbers that were inputted earlier. But again, those that were manually reviewed, those still need to be placed inside of it. So we have some numbers, but we won't release that as of yet. So hopefully within the week or by the end of the week, once we get everything into the system, all those that were manually reviewed, then we can go ahead and release those.
Okay.
Bernie, sorry. When you're talking about the number of people who just weren't qualified, we had a conversation that was a couple days ago, just about the income requirements, right? Just based on the applications that you've seen and the rejections that you've made, are you able to say if you feel like maybe the income qualifications were a little on the low side?
We were, from what we based it on last week, it looked like only 20% of the what we received was based on the income. Like I said earlier, we're seeing where their disqualification was simply because a lot of folks they're not even in arrears. They're not experiencing homelessness or instability. They're not affected by COVID. Sometimes they may, really it's really more so like case management. So we do case by case. And we took, there's some instances where an individual may be unemployed, but their unemployment is not based on COVID. It's because maybe they had a work injury or some sort, right? So we have to kind of dig a little bit further as to why they're not unemployed. I mean, what's the reason? And then that certainly won't make them qualify because again, it's not, it's not COVID related.
Right. Yeah. That's a
But
tough
again,
one.
preliminary, yeah. So, and there is a lot. So we have to keep probing and asking some more questions. And then sometimes we're like, it won't fly, it does not meet the three eligibility criterias. But again, when we ran the numbers last week, it was 20% that was the income level. So we were quite surprised too, because that's something I know you posed the question and others have as well. But we're like, okay, but we'll see again. We'll see. Certainly we'll run some more numbers by the end of this week and then we'll have some percentages for everybody.
For the 450 that were deemed eligible, how much does the payments equate to?
That's
it really varies, Rena,
Yeah.
because there are some that is requesting for assistance for rent arrears, and then there's some that are only requesting assistance for just utilities.
Yeah.
But I think when the grant was first received with DOA, we kind of did just preliminary numbers, an estimate of, we were expecting about 2,500 to 3,000 renters to apply. And for each renter, we were looking at about 18,000 per renter. And the reason for that is because the grant allows to assist these renters, tenants back from March last year to current, and it can cover, they can receive up to 12 to 15 months. So that's why that 18,000 is, it is pretty high, but we're already seeing some of those numbers in the applications when some of the tenants who do indicate, well, I'm 10 months behind.
Yeah, there's quite a few, like
my rent is 1,000. So already, you already know that individual is going to need 10,000 worth of rent arrears, and then that doesn't even include late fees. There are some lease agreements that if they're late 1 month, you have to pay an additional $100.
Yeah.
So if you're late 10 months, and that's another, 1,000 on top of their arrears. So just based on, our quick
reviews, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised it's 15 to 20,000 per.
Yeah, I dealt yesterday.
Household.
I was dealing with one individual, and it was up to about 22,000. Because it's just, they've been arrears for the last 10 months, 12 months. So, typically, and the rents are different and their bills are different, the power bills are different. So
Households are different.
Yeah, and the households are all different. The household amounts would be all different. But again, it's up to 12 months or with an extension of 3 months after that, so total 15.
So the only thing that's really capped is the number.
Duration.
The months, but the amount per tenant is not, there's no cap for the amount for financial assistance.
But again, they still have to meet the 3 eligibilities. So we just have to stress that.
So checks will be issued to the landlords and to the utility agencies.
To the utilities.
Starting next week?
Our goal really is to try to push for some, I say for some of those who we already provided the notifications by next week. Really trying to push for that. But like I mentioned, also it's really contingent upon them returning everything back to us. And we've noticed that although we may have sent out notices to them, they're turning things in piecemeal. So we want them to, once they return everything, it's like, okay, if you're asking for rental and utilities, send everything at one time because, if you're going to send me 2 or 3 emails, it's just like finding a needle in a haystack. It's like, okay, we'll put that aside until we get everything complete. But again, we are trying for those who are just simply maybe just needing rental assistance, and they provide us with the landlord verification, the W-9s, again, because it has to be a bona fide business, right? They have to have a business license. And then we can get the arrears amount. Those, the easier clear-cut ones will certainly address, and those who are a priority will certainly address.
I know in previous interviews you'd mentioned that this is just phase 1, right? When does phase 2 start? We
kind of changed the word phasing to more so this is cycle 1.
Okay.
Because cycle, yeah, within the cycle, there's two phases. One is, which is the tenant pre-application, which is what we're doing now, and then also the notification of those who are eligible or ineligible. So this cycle completed on the 26th. We're looking at probably more than likely establishing another one on May 3rd. So we want to make sure that we get everybody that falls under the 2,600 that falls under this particular cycle addressed, and whether or not they were approved or not. And then come May 3rd, we'll go ahead and open another cycle.
And this is also for arrears from March of last year.
Yeah.
So it's just giving.
So for those who for those who didn't apply this cycle, they can go ahead and do it on May. Or for those who are ineligible for whatever reason, and in the next, this month or next month, they fall under the three criterias. Certainly, they can go ahead and reapply, or we can take a look at their application again come May.
Where are you guys in having the ability to have people apply online? I think you mentioned that you guys are trying to work on that so people don't have to go to the mayor's office and physically pick it up, or DOA. Not at this time. Really, our focus, we are just full force going into reviews and notifications. Once this is a brand newly established program that we have, we opened up on March 3rd. So if certainly the governor wants us to get as much reviewed and get as much, funding out to the community, to those who are in need. But certainly that's something that we have to look at down the line, something more accessible to the individuals. But we do have an office that we set up here at DOA, at the second floor here at the ITC building. So it's suite 219. So for those who were approved and they need to turn in their documentation, certainly that's the office that they'll go ahead and drop it off to. All right. Well, thanks, Bernie. Audrey, was there anything else before we let you go?
I did want to just do a quick plug-in, Sabrina, regarding the landlord application. I know when on our the last time we were in air with you folks, we did mention that we were going to launch it this week. Apparently that didn't work out. We're still finalizing the forms, but the landlord application will be available starting Monday, April 5th through April 16th, and landlords can they'll be available on DOA's website, or if they would like a hard copy, they can pick it up at the PRA office, as Bernie said, located on the second floor of the ITC building. I did want to also mention to landlords, please, if your tenants have already applied, submitted applications, there's no need for you to submit a landlord application. The landlord application they're basically applying on behalf of the tenant. So we really want to make that clear. Submitting an application again would not make the process faster. It will only actually delay, because then that means there's duplication, and then we will have to put your tenant's application back and the landlord, and it's just going to be a really big mess, and just further delays. So landlords only if your tenant did not apply and you're applying on behalf of them. That's who we recommend to submit applications under landlord.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Bernie.
Thank
you, Audrey.
All right, we'll see you.
Okay, see you
And
guys.
talk to you later. Thank
Yes,
you.
Happy Easter.
Oh, you too.
I
Be
mean,
safe.
happy Easter.
Hi, day.
Hi, day.
Hi, day.
Hi, day. 8:47. Let's do Cover Me, and then we'll go to Public Auditor BJ Cruz, who's standing